just hit the recording button once again and see what happens. I guess when I hit F10, it stopped and I lost that part. Okay, well, something to be careful with. So instead of using F10, I will just use the short key, step over, step over, step over, step over, and once I'm out of reset, I am back into my main function because the reset is now done. Look what happens when we say push, or about to say push. By the way, this arrow always indicates the code which is about to be executed. So we have not executed push just yet. We're just out of reset. It's done. We're about to do this. Again, I will click this button to say step into, so that we don't step over, but actually observe what happens inside. So step into, we immediately jump to the source code for the push. Int element, or whatever element to be pushed on the stack, is going to be part of this code. So we can make another step right here. If you look careful enough in the automatic variable display of the debugger, or just click locals, it's going to show you those values. And of course, element here is 555, which is the value that was attempted to be pushed. So this is 155, and guess what? It's about to be stored in our data member variable. M underscore reminds me of it, and of course it's defined right here, right? So it's just remember this class definition here that we see, class in stack, open brace, so forth. It is just the blueprint of what's going to be happening in memory. So in memory we do have M underscore value, integer, that was instantiated when we declared our st, the stack, the instance of in stack, right? So now, as we, by the way, if you switch around files and everything in debugger, sometimes you could have like a dozen files open, and it's sometimes hard to find where you are. It's very useful. Very useful function. I think you can right click in the code window and say show next statement. I rely on this a lot in my debugging sessions, so that I don't have to remember where I am. I can browse around, switch between files, even open other files. Show next statement brings you right where I was before I start my exploring around. So this is good. I use it all the time. Just show me next statement. All right, so by the way, M value, of course, is 0 at this point, because remember, reset set 0. M value was set to 0 right here when we were executing a reset. So now we're about to store 555 in it. So let me again step over, right? And then step over whatever. Eventually we come back here, and this arrow now indicates that we're about to do this. Again, in the automatic variable area, which is the debugger's kind enough to show us, look what y contains. -8, 5, blah, 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 blah. So it's kind of garbage. Well, it's not exactly garbage. The debug build gives variables the specific values, so that if you attempt to use it in some weird manner, it may tell you that for example, the program crashes for some reason. The debugger will guess that because it contains this weird value, perhaps we crashed because the variable was never properly initialized. Especially if that variable is a pointer, then for sure we crashed because the pointer had garbage value. We tried to use it to go to some memory location, we crashed. And the debugger will be smart enough to tell you, perhaps this is because there is a suspicion that the variable was never initialized. Okay, so on this line, we're just about to instantiate integer, but its space is already allocated, so the debugger has no choice but to show you this garbage value. However, we're about to execute the call into the stack member function, see what it does, and then come back with the value. So again, I'm going to say step into, right? Jumping into pop function, going inside, and then simply returns the value. Of course, this value is 555, and I keep going with this session, going right out, and also because there was a temporary place for the return value, debugger is very careful in capturing it, and it tells you right here that in stack colon pop returned 555. So that's the value that was returned by the function back to the main function. And instantly we're about to initialize our variable with this. So if I say, okay, go ahead, move on, now of course y is 555. So this 555 was pushed into our object named st, which in its own turn had an integer field with this data. The data was saved. Then we moved on to the next line, and we're able to extract the value from there and store it in variable y. So how about this for the start, right? So it's just you know, the dynamics and you know, our preparation to really attack the homework. Okay, this chemistry keeps me on my toes, so I have to remember